Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining the second bite-sized webinar from the SFMI, and hosted by the SFMI, and introducing BAM FM, who are a long-time SFMI partner and have gone through many SFMI assessments with us. So I am going to be giving you a very quick overview of the SFMI. It's going to be very quick because there's going to be people who already know who we are, and then I'm going to hand over to Reed and Anthony, who from BAM FM, and they're going to be giving us a guide to implementing the circular economy into an organisation. So the SFMI, our purpose is to embed sustainability into the management and operation of the FM sector. So we do this through a number of ways. We have we publish a sustainability roadmap on an annual basis, and we assess FM providers on their ability to achieve the roadmap and their progress against the roadmap. And we also take it on ourselves to upskill the FM sector, which obviously is what we're doing now in collaboration with FM sustainability leaders in the organisation. And also we share and celebrate the success of the sector as well. So again, this is another example of celebrating success and kind of sharing achievements within the sector. Why do we do this? Because we see the FM sector as incredibly important in the road of achieving net zero targets, but also to implement social value within organisations, and to improve society, and also improve environmental management, because FM providers are there. They're managing sites, they're managing facilities, and they're in and amongst organisations from their clients, and they have a potential huge impact to embed sustainability. So we want to be helping organisations understand which ones are pushing ahead to become sustainable FMs, and which ones can also be part of that journey together. So without any delay, I'm going to introduce now Reed and Anthony from BAM FM. So Reed, I presume I'll hand over to Reed and take us through your how to implement circular economy in the business.
Great, Chris. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I hope you can see our slides. Yep. Okay. Very good. Yeah, we're just going to make a couple of quick introductions, but before we do that, I think our experience with circular economy. Well, first of all, our experience with circular economy is one where we've kind of started to make some inroads, and I suppose maybe rather than share some learning. We'll share some learning that we've got from it, but there's still a very long way to go, I think, not just for the FM industry, but for, as it says in the tin, the economy to really make circular economy kind of a tangible thing that works. And so during the course of today, I think we're going to be sharing some of our thoughts and kind of ideas as to where FM can make a start to this. And share that with everyone, and take it from there. And maybe there'll be time for some questions and answers at the end. My name's Reed Cunningham. I'm a veteran of all of the SFMI audits that Chris referred to at the start. So I've been with BAM a few years, and I'm responsible for our sustainability in the FM part of BAM.
Hi, my name's Anthony Heaton. I'm a sustainability manager for BAM FM, and really, I suppose, as Reed sort of alluded to there, we're going to sort of try and talk about some of these ideas, but it's a strange concept, the circular economy, because, it's probably about, 10 years or so it's been in the offing, and we've, at BAM, we were quite an early adopter to it as a business, and we sort of we signed up to a couple of the workshops through the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and we became a partner of the CE100. But if we're really being honest, it's been quite a slow burn, and it's quite a difficult concept, I think, for people to grasp. And certainly in in FM, as we'll come on to, I think we could be in a really strong position as an industry to kind of sort of push to the next level, really, and make some of these actions and some real tangible kind of changes and to make it going forward. So that's what we're going to sort of come on to through the presentation. So as we alluded to there, you know, it's not really no longer a blue sky thinking thing. You know, it's not in the world of, you know, environmental organizations and such. And I don't know if any of you caught this image that was floating around the G7 summit last week, but this was an artist who was commissioned to produce this, and it's called Mount Reuse More, depicting all the G7 leaders, a bit like Mount Rushmore, obviously, but made out of waste electronic equipment. And it was interesting that, obviously, you know, it's fascinating how they've actually done it and made it look lifelike. But if you look closely at the picture, there's so many things that you've probably got at home or in your offices and things that they're actually building this up. And the event, or the actual sculpture, was sponsored by Music Magpie, who is in effect a kind of quite a circular business in terms of recycling tech and mobile phones and such as well. So, you know, it's getting traction, it's becoming more talked about, and it's certainly important moving forward at high level in government. And to back that up, the government published a paper last summer on circular economy itself, and the words, which I won't read all of them, but in essence, you know, the UK is committed to moving to a more circular economy, keeping resource uses as long as possible, looking at, you know, long-term path for waste management and recycling. And really, it's going to be the only option that we're going to have, because landfill waste space is going to be taken up. You know, there's going to be more and more strict legislation in terms of what we can and can't throw away. So the fact that we're going to have to think about clever ways to design products to be reused is just essential and fundamental. You may have also seen this newspaper story fairly recently as well. EU legislation, which we'll be adopting as the UK as well, on repairability and spare parts. So it's tackling this planned obsolescence of items that we sort of traditionally throw away, or that once they stop working, we don't really bother to fix. So it's really this kind of almost taking a back in time approach, where, you know, we buy something once and then we look after it and maintain it and repair it. And if you think about that in a FM context, well, that's kind of us. What do you think, you know? The butterfly diagram as part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is obviously a well-publicised image, and I don't want to go into the detail, but what I do want to just focus on is they call them the Cascades, which is the area on the right that I've circled in red. And the Cascades are the options, a little bit similar to the waste hierarchy as was. And, you know, look at the language that they're using there: so maintain and prolong, reuse and redistribute, remanufacture and recycling. A couple of key things I wanted to just point out is that, you know, we want to be closer on the inner circles of these cascades. You know, we want to be maintaining and prolonging, and want to be reusing and redistributing, because that means that there's less energy in the remanufacture process, or the refurbish process, or the recycling process. So anything that we can reuse is great. I mean, as a silly example me and Reid would talk about is take a shirt, for example. You know, you can look after that shirt and keep it clean and tidy, then it's going to last you longer. If then you want to maybe redistribute, you could go to a charity shop and it can be sold and it can live another life as a shirt. It could be remanufactured by changing the buttons on it to make it a different kind of thing, or it could even become a cushion. And if it's absolutely the end of the life for that shirt, it can be shredded up and made into fill for cushions or whatever else. So in essence, you know, we're talking about real practical things here that we need to do, and it's raising the question of each activity that we do and each thing that we buy. So for BAM FM, you know, we started with disruption. The only way this is going to happen is to disrupt the norm. We need to stop sort of saying okay to things. You know, this is why we do it. This is because we've always done it this way. That's kind of no longer going to be an acceptable answer. We need to be questioning, like, well, that's okay, but what if we did this? Or what if we did it a different way? And that's what we started with, what's called a Takedown Workshop, which was in essence taking things like desktop phones, laptops, I think a toaster, and some light fittings in the middle of a desk with some screwdrivers and such. And we stripped them apart with a collective group of suppliers. And we discussed all the things that was in there, the components, and what was stopping people fixing or being able to fix them, or what was hindering the the reuse of this material. And it quickly appears that, you know, things are, circuit boards are pre-pressed and are fixed in with single-use plastic type components and wedged in there. And actually you can see that they don't make it easier for anybody to kind of repair or change or alter these kind of devices. And what that did is it led on to a company that we've got quite well publicised our kind of relationship with, is Whitecraft Lighting, who were around the table that day, sort of almost seeing the light, without pardon the pun, to think about their product and how they could think about their components within the light fitting to be able to replace on site and upgrade to LED as it was at the time, rather than take the whole louver and the whole assembly and throw it in the bin. So there's really usable materials within that. And what has transpired from that is that they've managed to make a revenue stream, a real tangible revenue stream out of that. You know, they're saving money through the manufacturing process, but they've also got a new revenue stream in terms of upgrades and recycling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to pass you on to Reid now.
Sure, I'll take this one. So we were trying to, I suppose, with the experience we had, particularly with Whitecraft that we came onto there, you know, effectively we reused large volumes of material in the carcasses of luminaires and the reflectors, but just changed the fluorescent tubes to LED. And that was a very successful project, but we tried to kind of consider that project against sort of other products and the sort of the economics of FM to see if there was some learning we could take from it to share primarily with ourselves, so that we could try and repeat that project with other manufacturers or suppliers, but also to share with you today. So these are a mixture of kind of thoughts that we've had and barriers that we've seen, and in the 4 quadrants. If I start with commercial, I think, you know, the first item is that the economics of products have become one and all about making the cheapest product, and virtually that's based around disposable products. So we see this in the fashion industry right now, where there's a lot of online retailers selling products that are kind of worn once and then discarded. You know, this may be an exaggeration, but it might also be sort of near the truth. And in the FM industry, we see a lot of products which are quite low value. And because they're low value, unlike the mobile phones that maybe have a recycling, have already established a kind of recycling route, these low value products are really struggling. It's actually not economic to come and pick them up and then share them with new users to reuse them. But that needs challenge. So the normal financial profitability model is a bit broken. But we do need our suppliers to make a profit. We need them to survive and flourish like Whitecraft and find new ways or new products, new ways of working. And it might be, when we come on to product design and things, that, you know, there's some ideas about maybe making things more modular, for example. So certain components might be discarded, while other energy intense pieces of the material in that component are retained. There's risk aversion as well in some companies. This is very new and it's a bit scary. It's a slightly new business model. It's a new economic model, and the guarantees of products and the risk of products and their suitability and their performance, as you see on the operational and technological boxes, we'll get to them again. That's a real challenge. In terms of structure, what we see, I think, is missing information. We don't really know, not just in FM, but in other industries, what we've got and where it's come from. We don't really know when we're going to want to exchange it or update it. And when we do come to exchange and update it, then how can we reach out to people to help us do that? Again, maybe the mobile phones, because they're high value, you can stick them in a pre-addressed envelope and send them off somewhere. But if we were talking about large pieces of furniture and equipment, that's a different challenge altogether. And we don't know what's in that equipment anyway. We don't even know how much we've got of it. There's a real challenge about the information that we need to have to create the opportunity. And there's unclear responsibility about the distribution of those assets. Are they owned by a client? Are they owned by an occupier? What is the role of the FM and the supply chain to the FM, or even the original manufacturer? Who is responsible for these things? And do they all have an aligned interest, or actually do they all have different interests in the circular economy story of those assets? So those are real challenges as well. Operationally, we've got these same issues about supply chain. Actually, suppliers and distributors aren't really sort of bought in to the circular economy process yet. They're more based around a linear economic process where new materials are provided to them and they pass them on to suppliers. The idea of taking stuff back is a real challenge. And product performance is obviously absolutely critical to any of us delivering services. We have to know products are working. That's all well and good when they're new, bought from a supplier. But if we're reusing, remanufacturing, repurposing items, are we confident that the performance is sufficient? And from the technological point of view, the product design itself, as I said, Whitecraft made an amazing job. They redesigned products, and the key for them was about designing out certain components and plastics and things like this. So they had a core material that was as minimal and had as long life as possible. But where there were components that did have a short life, then those are made in a modular fashion, so they can be taken out, but the largest body of material is retained. And that was a real eureka moment for them, and one which we would like to see repeated. Maybe, for example, with furniture, we could think about maintaining the carcasses and the steelwork with furniture, but just reprocessing the worn tops or recoloring tops, whatever different solutions there might be, without necessarily discarding. A challenge that we saw in the technological process was integrating new products into existing production lines, because effectively when you've already got half of a product and you're refurbishing it or reconditioning it a little bit, how does that enter an already busy production process? That's quite a challenge for manufacturers. And product standards and warranties, again, similar to the product performance, that's a real challenge for manufacturers to be able to redistribute existing products or slightly reconditioned, reconfigured products with the warranties and the performance that the operational customer expects is going to vary for different products, but certainly is a challenge. I think at this point we were going to ask for a poll.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Maddie, do you have a poll?
Do I need to stop sharing, Maddie, actually?
Yep, so that's popped up now, so everyone.
Okay, we can't see it. Can we see it? So I don't know if Chris or Maddie, we can't see it. I don't know if you can take any sort of thought about what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's up at the moment. So people should be answering that right now. So if you want to carry on, and people can answer that as you're going through it.
So which one? That one. Can you still see our slides? Yeah, super. Okay. So what we were thinking about, a kind of structured approach and trying to say, well, okay, we've had a great deal with Whitecraft. What are we going to do next? We thought about Frank Duffy's 6 S's, and it sounds like successes, doesn't it? Just when I say it there, but 6 S's. And what we were kind of considering was, is there a kind of rule, or is there a structure we can try and bring to this to help our decision making and help our kind of focus and prioritizing of our actions? And using Duffy's 6 S's, we looked at the stuff that's maybe inside an occupied space. Then there's the space plan, the services, the skin structure, and the site itself. And we were considering examples of where we can, as an industry, where FM can make a difference with either stuff we've already got or stuff that we will be procuring soon. And that's that stuff, whether it's FF&E and internal finishes, floors, carpets, this kind of stuff, whether or not we can be making better decisions about that quite frequently, because that kind of stuff has a high turnover rate, so typically maybe 3 to 10 years, as an illustration. Next, we thought about, well, the space plan and the scenery of an environment, maybe slightly less frequent, maybe 5 to 20 years, but what decisions could we be making about the environments we already occupy, or those new environments that we're going to be procuring in terms of the layout, the materials, and the arrangement of the structural partitions and walls could be reused and removed, or moved, rather than knocked down and skipped. This kind of thing, and what different decisions could we be making? And similarly on services with the lighting we've already mentioned, but data, cabling, power, controls and things. We then have a series of components in a building which FM don't come across quite as often, but they have a lot of embodied energy and material in them. So the skin and shell, including walls, windows, roofs, cladding systems, the structure, concrete and steel frames, things like this, and then the site itself, which is there permanently. And that there are, whilst we've maybe not put a huge amount of effort into that as an FM industry yet, and even as BAM FM, we are certainly considering those products and those items because, those components, because we are seeing design teams, particularly in the Netherlands, for example, considering buildings as a material store. And these materials are being stored on their transition, maybe to another building or another project altogether, another purpose. And there's an example that BAM have constructed in a Budenplaats office in Amsterdam, where the design team and BAM Construction started out from the strategy of thinking of the building simply as a material store, which is a really challenging, kind of cool idea. So, thank you, Anthony.
Thanks, Reid. Yeah. So just leading on from sort of that kind of introduction to the kind of digital impact of circular economy, really, and that, the future for us guys, we as an industry are already digitizing our assets. Some people further on the journey than others, but the beauty of having, data built within digital twin models or Revit models or whatever it may be is it's just allowing us to understand where the components are, who manufactured them, what the kind of maybe the lifespan is. So we may need to sort of thicken up the kind of data that we collect, but in essence, we're in a really good place to sort of utilize that data for circular reasons rather than for maybe efficiency in terms of repair and maintenance and things. Targeting certain components, is something important. We need to take the low-hanging fruit here. So as Reid alluded to there about the kind of the stuff aspect, although it may not be high value and it may not even be like high embodied energy or high carbon, or maybe not even in terms of the recyclability of it, but there is frequent changes in things like filters, things like life cycle works with carpets and things like that. We need to be making that the first sort of thought rather than a kind of, oh, well, a manufacturer coming back saying we have a take back scheme, or an afterthought for maybe a saving money reason. Again, the asset bank thing about, that these buildings are just custodians of these materials, protecting the natural capital, making sure that we'll be able to deconstruct at the end, and we will play a part in that, again, as the industry. And finally, the Internet of Things, we're still on this sort of early emergence of these smart buildings, smart technologies, smart sensors and smart things, when, for example, a pump, is due to be replaced in 5 years, if the item is smart enough to talk to the model or the twin of the computer, well, it might say, well, actually, it's still got 10 years worth of runtime in it because it doesn't ever get used or only occasionally on a backup. So there is opportunities for the buildings to become smarter and prolong the life of each of these individual components. So I kind of suppose in summary, really, about all this, we are in a really prime position to affect a change in this. We are at the coalface. We are dealing with existing building stocks. We are looking after things. We are trying to prolong the life of things, and we're doing repairs all day to day. So we should be really embracing this kind of terminology and these thought processes, perhaps more than anybody else. It's not just about new builds and new products. It never really was, to be honest. It was about maintaining the value of these existing components. So we need to kind of remember that it really is important to us guys as well. You know, construction have probably led the early development of circular economy, or the early adoption, and looking at, you know, big kind of concrete structures and steel and members like that. But actually, you know, it's us that's probably going to deliver them in reality. You know, they're going to build it, they're going to walk away, but us as the FM industry are going to have to deal with that probably for the next 25 years and then into perhaps deconstruction as well. Really, our kind of message to you is, you know, please question why. Try to think about a different approach, and it's not about, well, this is more expensive, but it'll be bought back over the next 5 years. Think about maybe that if I buy it once, I've only ever got to buy it once and look after it. And it's that kind of old-fashioned mentality, you know, joking apart, you know, people used to buy a frying pan and it were a frying pan for life. You know, it's a joke, but you know, the same kind of ethos is the same kind of thought process. So, and we just encourage people to talk more about it and don't wait, and please question and be a disruptor, because I mean, how cool does that sound, being a disruptor? So on that note, Chris, I think we'll just sort of stop sharing and pass back to yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, here we go. So I think we've got one more poll then, and I'm going to bring up my my deck quickly so we can kind of wrap up and go through some final questions. But yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, Anthony and Rita. I think, Anthony, I like your use of the you know, going back to the older times. I often think that actually is like sometimes the best solution is to just go back a couple of decades. Yeah. But we've had a few questions that have come through. A particular favourite type of question, I think, for one of these is from Catherine, who's asked basically for an organisation at the beginning of who wants to take their first step into a circular economy journey. You know, what would you recommend?
Well, for me, I think it is to sort of almost take a step back is the first thing. Look at the kind of work that you are conducting. Look at the kind of things you're getting involved in. Look at the kind of anything that's repeat, anything that you're doing on a regular basis, and start to try and analyse that and what they are. Sort of probably the data is probably already in your business, because you'll be doing it through purchase orders or repeat orders with suppliers, and sort of start asking the questions about it. So where does this come from? Has it got any recycled content? Who's it manufactured by? When you look at the manufacturers, the manufacturer looking at trying to do any kind of either take back schemes, or, you know, depending on how much you're buying or what kind of influence you might have, try to sort of push it back up the ladder to them. It's difficult, as Reed alluded to, with the wholesale market if we're buying from wholesalers, because you haven't got that direct link into the manufacturer. But you know, this is where us as a collective industry kind of group comes, and I suppose as a Claro and as the SFMI can probably support that in terms of being a voice, is that, you know, the more kind of we get together and collaborate on this, the more we can raise things like, you know, might be filters for a Mitsubishi kind of air conditioning unit. You know, it's difficult for one person to go up Mitsubishi as a giant conglomerate and affect the change. But if we as an industry come back together, then we've got a big number of things to then go to a big conglomerate like that and challenge. And it really is about that kind of asking what if really. And as well, there is stackfuls of resources online through really great TED Talks, YouTube, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation website's a great thing as well. And, you know, and through, you know, through like Claro and speaking to people like BAM and the other partners, I'm sure we've all got kind of good resources to go to as well. The Supply Chain Sustainability School is a good resource as well.
Brilliant. And another question, so Chris Billingham. So I think this is an interesting question. We often think of circular economy when it comes to physical products, but actually there's an element around kind of water and resources and things. Have you had an experience in the company about utilising the circular economy in terms of resources such as water? This is often a forgotten kind of area for organisations.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Well, we do have several buildings that have rainwater harvesting, not quite the same thing, but we do, and we do have suds ponds that at certain times of the year are, become kind of wildlife biodiversity areas after it's rained.
I think there is an emergence of as well as, like, you're quite right in terms of the physical products, but there is a service model for the circular economy as well behind this, which is really difficult actually for us to try and affect. We've raised it a few times. So on the lighting, without hammering on about lighting, apart from the product side of things, we've talked about a sort of a service provision in terms of the circular model. So you don't own the lights, you just buy the light, you buy the service product.
Yeah.
You could apply that to water as well. But so you're sat at your desks now, and do you actually need to own that light bulb, or do you just need to have so much lux level on your desktop? Well, in reality, you don't need the lux level. So there is a potentially sort of a financial model to paying per lux or paying per litre, perhaps, to be developed out of this. But I think at the moment that's running before we could walk.
That actually kind of goes into John Carden's point that he makes about kind of the phone, which has non-removable battery, so he has to replace it. So actually, as you're saying, like a transition in terms of business models to actually go to the more of the lease model, because then you lease the product from an organisation, and then when it comes to the end of the shelf life for that, they then take it back, and then they strip it down, and then they take it into the new model and the upgraded model, which is kind of the business that really, I think you were talking about, the economic kind of business transformation side of things. It kind of works into that. Brilliant. Well, I think so. We're at the end of our half an hour, so I'm going to very quickly just give a bit of a plug into what's coming up from the SFMI. So next month we are introducing Bouygues Energies and Services, who are taking the helm. So we can. It's been the session's been led by the procurement lead in Bouygues Energies and Services, and it'll be looking at the reduction of consumption of single-use plastics, with a focus on cleaning solutions, and also the reduction of embodied carbon. So it's very much kind of a follow-on within this particular session as well. So registrations have opened for that today. Looking forward to that. And then also, I believe the SFMI have a report coming out on procurement of FM, sustainable procurement of FM as well, coming out in the upcoming months. So please do keep an eye out for that. We have also released our 23 criteria of sustainable FM reports, which for companies taking part in this year's assessments will be highlighting the best practice requirements for the platinum grades, but then also for organisations who are interested in what sustainability means to an FM provider. It breaks down sustainability into environmental, social and governance issues, and then provides definitions for every single one and what that means to an FM provider. So please do take a look at that. And also we'll be getting in touch with organisations around the next sustainability SFMI forum as well. So keep an eye out for that. And then from our side, we'll be getting stuck into our desktop assessments this year. So the SFMI will be beginning to go through the assessment process. So if anyone is interested in kind of booking a slot in there for an assessment and being part of the SFMI, please do get in touch with us. So on that, thank you very much to Anthony and to Reed. That was a fantastic breakdown of the circular economy and what it means to an organisation, especially obviously an FM, and some great thoughts and ideas that have come out of that. Thank you very much for your time in that. And if anyone has any questions that they want to guide towards our speakers, please do pop an email into the SFMI, or pop an email to Maddie. My colleague Maddie will send out a communication to say thank you to everyone, and then we'll have ability for questions to come through if need be. So enjoy the rest of your days, and we'll see you in our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.